I was watching a video on YouTube the other day concerning how Bethesda could improve certain design decisions, and it was just general criticisms of Skyrim, some suggestions on how it could do better as a whole. At one point in the video, the game Kingdom Come: Deliverance was briefly mentioned, though it wasn't heavily elaborated upon. Lately I've been in the mood to play an Elder Scrolls title or something a lot like it, and by that I mostly mean a first-person and immersive experience set in the medieval world, or at least something akin to that. Considering that it was on the Steam Winter Sale, I decided maybe it was a good time to check this title out. I hadn't really heard of it otherwise, and I've received no direct recommendations for it, so I took the plunge, purchased it, and dived in. I was immediately drawn in with the interesting setting. The game takes place during the reign of the Holy Roman Empire. I wasn't playing for very long before I came to the conclusion that this seems like a phenomenal game. I'm just going to talk about some of the things I've experienced so far, and I feel as though I have barely dipped my toe into the water. Keep in mind these are early impressions, so not everything I perceive will be a 100% accurate account of the game, nor will I be able to cover all aspects of this title, so if you're familiar with it and I leave something out, that's why. The game starts in a simple enough situation. You are a blacksmith's son, you're oversleeping, and your mother comes to wake you up so that you can run some errands for your father to help out around the forge. This tutorial area I would liken to some extent to Seyda from Morrowind, though it's not 100% one-to-one. The reason I say that is because there is a great deal of things you can do in this tutorial town that aren't required, but could teach you a lot more about the fundamentals of the game, or just give you a wider perspective on what the game is or what's possible. That's one of the first strong points in its favor, because Morrowind has one of the best tutorials I've ever seen in a game, in the sense that you can pretty much piddle around for a while and learn more about the game, or you can head on to the bulk of the game. As I said earlier, it's not a one-to-one exactly. Kingdom Come is a bit more linear and requires some more commitment in the sense that it's a longer tutorial, but the concept is still there and that appealed to me. I did quite a few things in the starting area that didn't seem to be necessary, but were appealing enough for me to investigate them further. Regardless, to avoid any spoilers for the game, something upends the situation at your village, and you end up in another location, and once you go through a few sequences there and nearby, you are free to play the game however you wish, though you do have a few goals naturally developed from the aforementioned sequences. In my case, I ignored the main goals, not because they weren't interesting, but because I had other things in mind as soon as I achieved the coveted freedom in a truly open-world title. I had great intentions to find a better weapon and some more armor. Of course, I ended up getting involved in some side quests or activities that you can find throughout the towns. Suffice to say, before I knew it, I was closing in on 10 hours in the game before I even went back to do the first main quest, outside of the forced tutorial section. Looking back, I realized that I should have done this a lot sooner, because it taught me quite a few things about combat and so forth that would have been great to know, but I have no one to blame but myself, and at the same time, I really enjoyed just jumping into the world and learning as I went, even if that meant seeing the game over screen more often than usual. This game is not afraid to show the player that screen, and if you aren't playing carefully, you'll become very familiar with it. Speaking of combat, this game is, as said, a first-person title. There is no magic or anything of that sort, as this is a more realistic and historical setting for the game, but there is of course hand-to-hand fighting with weaponry, unarmed, and the ranged option of a bow. I've attempted combat with all of these so far, and at first the system was a little confusing, but once you get used to it, I think it makes perfect sense and feels very good. Effectively, it's a system all about timing and watching your enemy. You have 5 different points of attack, 6 if you count the thrust. You can start charging your attack in one given direction, and then when the enemy moves his sword in that direction in an attempt to block you, you can attack in the other direction, hopefully landing a hit. The primary success that this battle system achieves is feeling very visceral and immersive, at least to me. Thus far, there are no hit point sponges to be found, rather just better equipped and skilled enemies to encounter. Archery is a little different, and I've not used it much in combat scenarios, but I have practiced with it at the archery range and in an archery competition. There is no targeting reticle on screen for the archery. You simply have to make your best guess or approximation of where the center is or where your target's going to be. I think it's a pretty realistic interpretation, and once an enemy gets too close, archery is going to be of no use to you, and I think that makes sense. So it might be good if you're looking to get a stealthy drop on someone or do some early damage before combat really begins, but it's not going to do anything for you up close and personal. Despite the lack of a targeting reticle, I found myself to be pretty good at archery, at least with the stationary targets in the practice field, and I did whip out the bow a couple of times when an enemy was running away from me, because it is fairly difficult to catch up with them once they start dashing away, and I did have success in arrowing him in the back while he was fleeing, and it felt great. A lot of the combat in general just feels great to me once it more properly clicked. The targeting system could cause some people trouble, but I decided that it was pretty effective once I started to get the hang of it. Unless you're trying to get away from combat. It can sort of keep you hooked in, but realistically, it's just difficult to escape multiple enemies that can run as fast as you can. You're kind of auto-locked on a certain enemy, and if you try to shift away, you can refocus to another enemy, or if one takes precedence in terms of proximity to you, often it will shift to that target. If you see the game playing in motion, you can see that this could cause a little trouble with multiple enemy encounters. Personally, I'm still working on that aspect of the game, but the first time I took down a group of 3 or 4 guys, I felt very accomplished. It also depends on how well armored your enemies are, because fighting 3 to 4 bandits wearing no armor whatsoever and wielding torches and their fists is going to be a completely different result than fighting 3 or 4 armed and equipped soldiers with swords and maces. Regardless, to me the combat feels truly excellent once you start to get into a stride. Going back to that main quest I mentioned earlier, one of the early functions is to spar with a knight, and because of my experience in the field, I was able to defeat him both in practice and in the real session immediately thereafter, and it felt pretty good. I know that if I had done it as soon as I was able to do that quest, I definitely wouldn't have been able to beat him, but I also probably would have learned some things that would have been effective to know about, but looking back, I wouldn't have it any other way. I would say dive in and do whatever seems the most interesting to you, whether that be continuing the main quest, or starting by forging your own path, or some combination of both. The game also features stealth components, and there are a lot of interesting mechanics at play here. When you equip armor, it has a certain rating in relation to the noise you're going to make, so if you're walking around in a full suit of plate or chain, you're going to make a lot more noise than if you weren't. This means that it's more likely someone's going to hear you when you're sneaking up on them, or trying to unlock their private chest while they are sleeping. I find the stealth gameplay in this title to be much more rewarding than something like Skyrim or Fallout, especially because of considerations like that. I actually feel like I'm breaking and entering at times. Before I learned how to pickpocket, I thought the only way to retrieve something from someone was to knock them out, so I would often tail people in the middle of town, waiting for an opportunity when no other NPCs were around to come up behind them and subdue them, carry their corpse to a dark alleyway, and loot whatever it is I was after. Honestly, it provided quite a rush subduing NPCs in what is effectively the middle of town and getting away with it. Having finally amassed some capital, I thought I was doing quite well for myself until I tried to purchase my own horse. That was quite the reality check, as I intended to buy the top-tier mare when I strolled into the stable, only to leave with the cheapest one available. Regardless, having a horse is a complete game changer. Unless you have a lot of strength, and even then, encumbrance is going to be a real concern in this game. If you're wanting to have heavier armor that defends better against attacks, it's going to weigh you down, and you will probably be able to carry much less in terms of loot. This was always a problem for me because I was basically trying to strip bodies down to their underwear in order to make a little bit more capital. That's where the horse comes in, as they can equip saddlebags and carry quite a lot of weight. In terms of what my base character can carry, even the cheapest horse is able to carry about 2.5 full inventory equivalents. This means I can put all kinds of stuff on the horse that I don't need immediately in most cases, like additional arrows or bandages or other things that I might need, but not necessarily in a critical moment. More importantly, I can strip all the corpses in an effort to make more money and hopefully one day be able to upgrade to a better mare, though this one has proven trusty. In addition to storage capacity, a horse opens up a lot more opportunities for faster travel. While you can fast travel to major locations once you've discovered them, you certainly will have to get there once to begin with. I spent a lot of time walking around the map trying to get to different areas for different reasons, and I really enjoyed it a lot. The game is beautiful beyond what I expected, but after so many hours in the game, I was ready to be able to traverse certain distances quicker, and the horse absolutely provides that. It's nothing like the Elder Scrolls where having a horse isn't even worth it, since it effectively moves the same speed as your character sprinting. When mounted, you must move anywhere from 2 to 4 times faster than your sprinting speed in this title, at least until you drain the horse of stamina, but that can last quite a while. You have to be careful though. It's been more than one time that I've been racing around the land and not realized how deep or sharp a drop was coming up, and ended up falling to my death on horseback. I haven't played a lot of games centered around horses or horseback riding, but as far as the ones that I have played goes, this one feels the most visceral and real. I really feel like I'm galloping quickly through the forest or on a roadway or through town. Another added benefit is that when you're fast traveling, there's a chance of a random encounter, whether that's being waylaid by bandits or just a random NPC. And if you're on horseback when you enter these encounters, you have a much better chance of being able to escape if you don't want to fight, which makes perfect sense. I've only been able to successfully escape an on-foot encounter a couple of times in all of my gameplay, but on horseback I've been able to escape if I wanted to the majority of the time, so it makes a huge difference in terms of your survival. Speaking of survival, the character has an energy, hunger, and a fatigue meter which need to be restored by both eating food and sleeping in a proper bed from time to time. The greater your hunger overall, the lower your maximum stamina will be, and therefore the more poorly you will perform in combat, and the less distance you will be able to run. So it is imperative to stay at least mostly well fed and to bring food along for any given journey, as the last thing you want to do is end up tired and hungry out in the woods and then have some bandits show up, or worse, men in armor. Sleeping in a proper bed also has the game save for you, which it only does intermittently in certain conditions. Otherwise you will have to use an item called the Savior Schnapps, which is a potion of sorts that costs about 150 gold or equivalent. So there's a very real penalty technically to saving manually. This helps deter save scumming, I'd guess. I kept saving mostly to a minimum in my early hours of play, relying on the bed in order to save. I would explicitly make trips back to the bed so that I would be able to save, but now that I've had some more money stored up, I've been trying to save more often to avoid long runs to locations or whatnot, but I really like the system. Energy is more readily restored either through certain foods, concoctions, or a comfortable bed. Where you sleep is somewhat important, and it's much like The Sims. Think of each place to rest as having a certain quality level of comfort. A plush bed indoors is going to be a lot better than a lot of straw in a cave. Back to Immersion for a minute. The game takes place in a first-person view, as mentioned, and if you look straight down you can see the character's legs, arms, or sword hilt. I have seen this before in other games, but it's never had such a strong impact on me as it has with this title. I really do feel like I am this character, going through the world and getting into all of these troubles and intrigues. Dialogue also has checks when you are in communication with others, and you need to convince them of something, or so on and so forth. You have a few different methods at your disposal, one of which is a more brute force method or threat. Another can be smooth talking or speech, and so forth. Your numbers are displayed atop the other NPC's numbers, but until you get certain perks, theirs won't be visible naturally, at least at first. Speaking of perks, the game has several core stats which raise through the player performing acts related to them. For example, sword fighting will eventually raise my strength. Skills are the same way. There's a good-sized skill list that will go up as you use the skills, such as horseback riding. You can also train with NPCs similar to the Elder Scrolls. When skills reach a certain level threshold, you can unlock perks. Each skill has perks available beneath it, but at least so far you only get so many points, so you need to choose wisely. A lot of times, these perks will conflict with one another. For example, there is a perk to give you plus strength and agility and so forth when you're in a town proper, or you can take the perk that gives you those same set of buffs when outside of town. Or a perk that allows you to have a better chance of success speaking with the nobility, or inversely with the lowborn, depending on which one you pick. Your character appearance can also have an impact on communication. If you are dirty and bloody from a battle, you may appear more threatening to an NPC, and that can work to your advantage or disadvantage. A trip to the bathhouse can dispel this issue for you. The same goes for your clothing. If you are dressed in a regal manner, nobles are more likely to be amenable, and vice versa. I can absolutely continue to talk about this game, but my main point here is that this game seems phenomenal. Yes, these are early impressions for me, but I have become quite taken with the game, and I understand they are working on a sequel, and for me at least, at the moment, this is going to be a day one purchase, unless things change as I continue on through the game, and my opinion sours for some reason or another. I think Bethesda could do well to learn a lot from this title, so I'm not suggesting necessarily that Elder Scrolls has to become something like this. I do think there are lessons to be learned. If you had even a passing interest in this game, I highly and strongly suggest that you take a look at it. If not now, then the next time it's on sale with Steam. For the price I ended up paying, this was a steal, and it's providing an amazing experience that I can't really compare to much else. Give it a shot. If you've enjoyed this video about Kingdom Come: Deliverance, feel free to drop a like for me. If you've also experienced this game, leave a comment down below and tell me what you thought. As always, you're welcome to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Until next time.